Regulars to the show know how much I'm a fan of the local music scene. I've been known to squander many an afternoon shuttling between not just festivals. We have got great festivals here, but we got the Boathouse and Chrysalids right downtown, and plus there's there's all kinds of stuff you can find on the bar scene for live entertainment. I'm a big fan of the local music scene, and I would like to see it get more attention. So when I see this question asked, then I just got to follow up on it. The question asked is, does music impact economic development? Can you say definitively that it is a catalyst? Can you say that having this wonderful hotbed locally we have for singer-songwriters and different styles of musicians and things like the Koi Festival and the Jazz Festival and the Blues Festival, can we say that's good for the community beyond the fact that it's a festival and we all have a darn good time? Because that's what we're talking about, right? Well, Jeff Leiper joins us in studio. He's in town from Ottawa, and we do invite people from Ottawa here occasionally. Jeff is the Chief Policy Advisor at ICTC, which is the Information and Community Technologies Council. How are you?
I'm well, Gary. Thanks for having me on.
Welcome to Kitchener.
Thank you.
Now, you guys have a pretty good independent music scene going on in Ottawa, too. I've spent some time up there.
It's the Black Sheep Inn in Gatineau across the way, the Elmdale Tavern in my neighborhood in Hintonburg, a ton of great music going on Elgin Street. It's pretty vibrant.
And it's the same here. And that pleases me that it's here and it's viable. But can you make a direct connection to the economic engine of a community? Can you tie it to the arts community?
We've made a good attempt at doing so with this first contribution to the conversation. Just to provide a bit of context for your listeners, we're an organization that takes a look at the talent needs of the high-tech industry in Canada. We need to have enough workers in high tech working in Canada to really develop on the potential of that industry here. And one of the things that we've taken a look at is, why do tech workers move to cities where they move? What is it that attracts tech workers to various different cities? And this report covers one aspect of that. We did it in conjunction with an entity called Music Canada. It's the association that represents the big record labels in Canada. And they asked us to take a look in light of some activity here in Kitchener, for example, in light of the sales pitch that Austin, Texas makes to high-tech companies. Can we draw a link between a city's music scene and whether or not it is a hub for technology? So we approached it a couple of different ways. We talked to municipal officials in Austin. We took a look at articles and did a review of the literature. We talked to tech workers themselves. We talked to companies that hire them. And we think it's not a coincidence that cities that have great music scenes are also cities that have really strong technology hubs. And that's what we're going to present this afternoon when we present our report.
So there is that distinction. What is it about the tech workers, though? I don't get that connection. Is it just... I grew up in the 60s. So are you telling me if I was a millennial, if I was growing up in the tech sector, I'd still be as attracted to independent music as I am now? I'm curious as to how that's changed.
Well, I think what we're looking at is the most innovative and creative people working in technology tend to be younger people. And there is certainly that demographic overlap with the younger set who are creating the startups, who have the ideas for the apps for their iPhones, they're on social networks, etc. And that is a demographic that tends to be really interested in music, and they're getting that music scene out of the university. They're listening to the music in high school, and when they grow up a little, they begin to launch some of these companies. They don't want to live in cities that are, I think Richard Florida called them, culturally sterile. They want to do the creative technology work that they do in cities that offer them great music scenes.
One of the advantages we have here, quite frankly, Jeff, is the two universities and the community college. A lot of young people that come here for their schooling can't think of a reason to leave.
Yeah. And it's really interesting to take a look. I mean, Austin, Texas is sort of one of our case studies that we take a look at. And it has several great schools. And it's a pipeline for the technology companies that are in Austin. And Austin tends to do a really good job at keeping those students who are in the pipeline in Austin, working for companies that are working in Austin, and they have made down there that explicit link between the live music scene in Austin and economic development. So what they've said is that when technology companies, are looking for some place to locate, and they talk to the municipal economic development officers in Austin, they sell those companies on the fact that there is a great music scene. I probably don't need to talk too much about how huge a deal the South by Southwest Festival is in Austin. Yeah. It bills itself as the live music capital of the world. It has multiple festivals throughout the year. I think there are dozens besides just South by Southwest. A lot of those festivals, I think it's fascinating. The South by Southwest conference has an interactive digital component to it as well that frankly is attracting as many people to it as are going to the music part. The digital technology and the music are linked hand in hand. And what the officials down there are telling us is when companies are looking for some place to go, they take them out. They take them out to the bars. They take those company executives out to the street to see what's going on, and the executives are sold. I was just recently in Nashville, which is, of course, Music City. It bills itself. But it doesn't seem to have a really strong independent music scene. And it was really interesting to read while I was down there that they've had to make a bit of a change at the top with some of their city officials because they're not able to keep and attract the tech workers who are graduating from the schools there. Those workers are moving elsewhere. Again, it's difficult to prove conclusively, but I don't think it's a coincidence. I think that cities that have really strong cultural scenes, not just music, but cultural scenes, we think music is a big part of it for the younger set, are the most successful at keeping those students and young entrepreneurs in those cities.
As you're speaking, I'm trying to think of a reason to be culturally sterile. I'm trying to think of a community that would not want to promote this aspect just because it's a good lifestyle component.
It is a great lifestyle component, quality of life. Companies need two things in order to decide where they're going to locate. They need access to capital and they need access to talent. And what people say overwhelmingly when they choose where to live is that the quality of life is a big part of it. Now, quality of life can mean different things to different people. To some people, quality of life means inexpensive housing. You can get a large house on a big lot relatively inexpensively. Is the community safe? But what we've seen is that in the technology sector, the workers tend to be very creative. And one of the big factors for them more than others is the creative and the cultural aspect of a city. I don't think every city needs to be have a vibrant independent music scene in order to attract economic development. But what I think a city that wants to attract high-value technology jobs needs to be is culturally vibrant with things like strong independent local movie scenes.
I got a buddy of mine who is a number of them in the same band. I don't think they've ever performed together on stage. They put a CD out, and that was my first introduction to the marriage, if I can put it that way, of technology and music. Because what he had this, he would send his other bandmates the music sheets, and the bass player would lay down the track on his computer and email it to another guy who would mix it there, and then email that to the vocalist. And
the industry has changed wholesale in the past 10 years. To the point where an iPad now is a recording studio. It is awesome. I just bought my son an iRig in order to hook his Strat up to the GarageBand app on his iPad. A pedal that might have cost $30 or $40 or more in order to give you different effects is now just an app on an iPad. He throws on the headphones and he sounds like, at least in his mind, Clapton or The Edge. There is still the need.
But because of the headphones, he doesn't drive his dad over the edge.
He's I still hear it, and I wish I was hearing the edge tones. I hear the unamplified sounds of his Strat. But no, I mean the industry is a digital industry now.
Yeah.
I think it's remarkable in the high schools that do a good job teaching music, and this is the other part of the report that we'll talk about tonight. In the schools that do a good job of teaching music, it's a technological pursuit. The recording equipment is digital. The ability to jam over a Facebook or an iPhone app or a BlackBerry app is huge. And then, of course, they're sharing the music digitally. You find out about new bands digitally. The services that people listen to in order to find new music are digital services like Pandora or RDO. It's changed the economics of the industry, absolutely, but it has become a very digital industry. And in that light, I guess I'm not surprised that oftentimes we see that the technology and music are linked hand in hand in people's minds.
So is that one of the reasons that the high-tech sectors finds it rather appealing? Because I'm guessing there's that creative side that just speaks out and yells at them.
Yeah, I mean, our report takes a look at what does music education actually foster in people, and music is math. In order to learn how to read the sheet music and understand how notes relate to one another, how does this chord relate to that note? How does an arpeggio work? It's very mathematical. But unlike, say, the study of pure math, it's also a very emotional or spiritual experience. You hear sounds in your head that give you feelings that you might not have doing a Pythagorean theorem. Music is something that ties the math and the logic and the computational skills together with something that is very creative. It's a way of expressing feeling. It's a way of expressing a lot of different emotions.
When the Jazz Festival was in town a few weeks ago in Waterloo, I asked my listeners to give me a definition of jazz.
Great.
And I had two favorites, but one of the ones I really appreciated, listening to you talk about jazz, is a gentleman who said the jazz is the noise a band makes as it falls down the stairs.
A little cacophonous. Syncopation.
Well,
yeah.
But I love that. And the other definition that I liked of that one was jazz is how emotions sound.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that can be said of a lot of different genres of music.
Oh, absolutely.
Jazz, obviously, is a conversation. It's a discussion. It's got that tradition. It's got that musical form. But certainly, as a solo expression of emotion, the blues, and I think Kitchener just recently had its blues festival.
Great blues festival.
Yeah, great example of that. It's a single. I was listening to Sun House the whole way up here. It's music is an emotional experience, and when it comes to creativity, and I'll bring it back for a second just to what our report is finding, is that we don't need the jobs in Canada necessarily that are done by rote in high technology.
Right.
There's a lot of jobs that probably won't be done in Canada moving forward in a global environment, in a competitive environment. People who take instructions and code those into a platform, that can be done more cheaply elsewhere. Manufacturing the hardware. Where Canada needs to stay is at the top of the information technology value chain. That means finding out what kind of services do people need? What are they going to react to? How can we market those to them? It's creative work. And one of the points of our paper is that you've got to have the technical know-how, but you've also got to have strategic thinking. You've got to have leadership, entrepreneurship, innovation. And what we're asserting is that the study of music can help foster all of those in a way that, say, studying pure engineering doesn't.
All right, we're going to continue our conversation with Jeff in just a minute. Don't go away. This is 570 News. All right, we probably should have just left the mics on during the commercial break because the conversation hasn't stopped. This is how much I enjoy this type of chat. Jeff Leiper is with us in studio, Chief Policy Advisor at ICTC. That stands for Information and Communications Technology Council. He's in town for a presentation this afternoon about music and the local scene and impacting the economic development. Sherry sent this email along. You either like good music or you don't. Everyone has their views on what they like and what is good music. I do not believe music or the nightlife has that much power over business, over location, over creativity. It's just music to enjoy, at least some music. Seems like a stretch to link the two because there's some very smart people that don't like music.
It's hard to argue. But what I think we're seeing is that people who work in a particular sector, in the technology sector, do tend to be more creative people and do tend to want music and cultural pursuits to be a part of the city in which they're living. And I have to congratulate. I mean, I know Kitchener is currently looking at how can we encourage the nightlife? How can we improve quality of life through making sure that there are venues for bands to play in, that there are festivals for people to play at. And I applaud that. I think that for a sizable amount of the population, that they're going to respond well to that a better music scene is going to result in a better quality of life for them and their families. But I think we were talking before the break that's going to be different for everyone.
Sure.
I know in Ottawa, some people, they don't mention the music scene at all when they talk about why they love Ottawa. It's the recreational opportunities, right? You can get across to the Gatineau Hills in 5 or 10 minutes, and you're mountain biking. You can sail on the Ottawa River. You can kayak down the rapids. Outdoor pursuits are going to be very attractive to some people in the population as well. But I think our finding, and this is after talking as well to a lot of people who are in the tech sector, is that music is a particularly important part of the quality of life that they're looking for when they choose where to work, where they choose to put their headquarters. I think it's really fascinating. I know Google recently opened up a new office in Montreal. And one of the first, they asked their engineers, what do you want us to provide you? We want you to be happy. What do you need in order to be happy here? And what the engineers asked for was a music studio. And Google is taking advantage of its technology. I think it's called the Hangouts, which allow people in multiple different locations to chat. And, they have regular jams. I was just touring your Communitech facility, which is an absolutely awesome facility across the road there. And they've just recently had a number of jams as well. There seems to be something for technology workers that is really attractive about music as opposed to some other pursuits. Is it the be-all and the end-all? No. There's a lot of different things that people enjoy, but what we're seeing anecdotally and in the evidence and in the writings of people like Richard Florida is that cultural pursuits and music in particular are important if you want to build creative cities.
I will be honest, when we set this opportunity to chat with you today, I was a little bit concerned that you were coming here after Communitech. I wanted you to come before because I didn't know if you'd leave or not once you got over there.
It's a fantastic facility, and they're doing everything right. And when I look around, all those young people and the energy that they're bringing to their task and the passion. But what I think is really important to note is that a lot of those folks are coming out of, they're coming out of Waterloo or they're coming out of the other universities in the area. They have some really strong technical skills, but what they really need to learn how to do is to communicate their vision to other people. They need to take leadership over the project and get other people excited about it. And those are the non-technical skills, the creative skills that we think studying things like music can help to foster.
Those of us that aren't into the high-tech sector, and this is the reason I think people my age had kids, so I can come home with the latest and say, set this up, and they do. Yes, my tech... 37 years they've taught me on off. That's all I pretty much know here. I'm not your technocrat.
Absolutely. Yeah, no worries.
So I understand the marriage, but I think a lot of people have the impression that high-tech people are just geeks with white skin because they never come outside to play.
Yep. And this is something that in the rest of what ICTC is doing is a huge concern for us, is that perception of what technology work is. That it's a profession that is filled with smelly boys who don't go and see the sun anymore. I mean, the number of women working in the high technology field is just atrocious. We're not taking advantage of half the population in terms of trying to make sure that there are enough people working in creative enough technology pursuits that Canada stays at the top of the innovation ladder. No, I think when we take a look at what technology is today, particularly the kind of high-value technology jobs that we want Canada to have. It's digital media content creators. It's people who are creating apps that connect people to one another, social media type stuff. There's some really interesting work to be done in analytics. The high-value jobs are not the jobs that get done by rote by people who are working in closed offices. They have to collaborate. They have to get together and communicate with each other. And I think Communitech is exactly the kind of facility that helps to foster that. I'm really excited by what I saw there.
Well, I'm fortunate that every year when they have their big tech show, I get to broadcast my show from there, and I get to meet a lot of these people and talk to them. And I'm absolutely flummoxed all the time by their passion for stuff I don't get. But I don't think I'm their target market. But I can't tell you what it means to our community. I can't tell you how pleased I am, and you mentioned Communitech, and it's such a great hub, and to have them here and in the Tannery building, which is a direct link to our past, I think is phenomenal. Jeff Leiper, we're out of time. We could chat all day long, but they won't let me.
Oh, sorry to hear that, Gary. Thank you very much for having me on.
Enjoy your time here.
Thank you.
This is 570 News.